Everyone to the working class revolt. So you've all probably heard by now the big speech by Nigel Farage where he has announced mass deportation if he becomes the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Now, many independent media channels are saying this is a complete U-turn and being quite critical of Nigel Farage. But I want to show you an unearthed clip which was on the Dan Wootton channel that shows Nigel Farage talking about Enoch Powell and might give an explanation to why Farage may have always believed in mass deportation but didn't believe it was right to talk about it until now. Take a look at this clip.
Way. But he said, I feel like the Roman, standing on the banks of the Tiber, foaming with much blood. And of course it became known as the Rivers of Blood speech. The problem with that speech was this, that you need to be in politics, if you're there not just for a career, but you're there to change things, to move things on, you need to be ahead of public opinion, to try and be a magnet, and to bring public opinion and bits of the media and change with you. I've done that throughout the last 20 years. I've tried to keep putting the flag, further and further out in the ground, but there's a problem if you go too far ahead and you go to a place that people simply aren't ready to even conceive. And it led to the destruction of the career of, without doubt, the most talented post-war politician in Britain. But it did something else. It also allowed that liberal media elite to make immigration a banned subject. And from 1968 until me in 2003-4, nobody with a sensible voice or view in British politics dared to touch the subject.
So that, for many, many reasons, is very interesting. And I must say, first of all, although I was in UKIP back in 2014 and 15, I've always followed Nigel Farage. I wasn't aware of that clip, or in fact Farage ever talking about Enoch Powell. Now Farage goes on to basically say that Enoch Powell was right in everything that he said, but because he said it before the tide had changed, he was basically villainised. And what you've got to do is you've got to talk about stuff that's not on the agenda, like a magnet, Farage describes it, but not take it too far, because the public will basically turn on you. Very similar to what Donald Trump said about mass deportation, when he said he's got to be careful because the first time the public see a woman or a child being dragged out their house, they will turn on him. And when you're a political leader like Farage or Trump, you do go with what the public says, because ultimately they're the boss. Now let me know, do you think I'm giving Farage too much credit? Am I wishful thinking? But I also don't like being too critical of politicians who read the room and change their mind. Even at a local level, I've done it myself. Sometimes you say something, you realise that you've actually got the wrong end of the stick when it comes to the public, and they will let you know. So I think people should take a victory if that's what they want to see in mass deportation. I think the majority of people watching this channel certainly do. If you wanted that from Nigel Farage, I think first of all we should be happy, but I do believe that this is something that Farage has always been passionate about. Nigel Farage's knowledge on how to deal with these situations is right up there with the best of them, but I think Farage is very, very wary of pushing the agenda too quickly and too far. And I think 12 months ago, when Farage was asked about mass deportation, he didn't want to first of all, make a promise that he couldn't keep. I think he's also worried because, let's be honest, the mainstream media attack Nigel Farage on absolutely everything he says. We've seen that with the Tommy Robinson situation. Farage very, very worried to say anything at all about Tommy Robinson, but if again gets dragged in, and it many times, in my opinion, says the wrong thing. But here, I think this is nothing but a good thing. Farage is seeing that it's becoming more acceptable to talk about mass immigration, and is now putting a plan forward to get the job done. But again, let me know what you think. What do you think about Farage's plan? Anybody who comes over here illegally will be detained in these new detention centres and deported straight away. But on top of that, he will do mass deportation on hundreds of thousands of people that are already living here. Another thing that we saw with Donald Trump, the very notion that Trump became president stopped everybody coming over the southern border. And I think that's what we'll see with Farage. If Farage keeps his tough rhetoric up, he's now seeing that the overwhelming majority of British people are now agreeing with him, where only a few years ago those in the centre, although they might have agreed with it, would get put off if the language was too strong. I think a Farage government, I think, would put off people coming here illegally without actually much being in place. But let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching the channel. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for supporting the working class revolt. We've got some new merch that we're selling on our website. We're doing comedy political mugs. We've got one here, which is the iconic moment after Donald Trump got shot, with his hand in the air saying fight, fight, fight. We've got ones like this saying I'm voting Reform UK. And we've got ones like this saying Nigel Farage 4 PM. And we've got many, many more on our website. So please check them out. They're all $9.99 and they'll all be with you within a few working days. The website is www.workingclassrevolt.co.uk and the link for the website is in the description of every video.